Welcome to this week's episode of the Proper Crows podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you may be watching or listening at the moment. Thank you for your continued and ongoing support. In today's episode, of course, we're going to be going through the big win against the Dogs from last week. Looking forward to this week against the D's, your feedback and much, much more. As always, not just myself here this evening. I'm joined by Matt. Mate, how are you?
Yeah, very good. Still absolutely buzzing from one of the greatest first quarters I've ever seen in the history of the Crows. And whether this puts us on a higher trajectory than we ever expected, who knows? But with the draw coming, it looks very promising, and hopefully we can break into the top four.
Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. And of course, the return of the dose again. Thank you very much for filling in, mate. How you going?
All good. It's a pleasure to be here 2 weeks in a row, gents. I enjoy spending time with you and talking footy, so thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start with you, mate. What was the score from Thursday night?
Well, we got over the line and you could almost have wrapped it up after the first quarter, but the final score was Adelaide 19 goals 7, 121, beat the Western Bulldogs 9 goals 10, 64. And the goals went 4 to Josh Rochelle, 3 to Jordan Dawson all in the first quarter, 3 to Riley Thilthorpe all in the first quarter as well. Luke Pedler, 2 goals. Zach Taylor, 2 goals. And then Toby Murray, Wayne Miller, Cookie, Keys, and Fogg, each with 1.
Yep, absolutely. And just a dominant performance from start to end, really. Didn't really get under 5 goals after quarter time. Just very encouraging, really. I mean, I didn't see that first quarter coming, but was very glad to see the way that the boys played and just really put the sword to the Dogs straight off the bat.
I think it was one of the cleanest games again I've seen. Again, obviously we're having the ball under a roof help, but as I said at the beginning, the first quarter, it's only the third time in our history we've scored 9 or more in the first quarter. First time we achieved that, I do believe, was against Kangaroos 20 years ago, and then we did it again against Essendon 9 years ago. So in terms of opponent, it was probably our best first quarter in club history, I would say. We've had some very good starts to games, but not quite as good as that, where you kicked 8 goals within the first 10 minutes of a game. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, blistering pace. That was what it was. And I mean, did the Dogs kick the first goal or the second goal?
They in real time they kicked the first goal, but it was quickly overturned, and then we piled on 4 straight in a row, and then took them till about, I think, halfway through the first quarter to get there first. So yeah, it was just total domination, really. And I think I'm not going to say there's any luck involved after having a goal disallowed after the first minute, but it really just got us going straight away. And yeah, we put the foot down pretty quickly, and Riley Thilthorpe, Jordan Dawson and the likes, they just said, we're back. Well, not Dawson. Dawson's been here all year, but Riley Thilthorpe's first quarter, I think we can all say that's been a long time coming. And if this is the Thilthorpe we get for the rest of the year, we are genuine contenders at this point.
Yep, 100%. He was, back in a big way. There was a few doubts with him coming back in. Obviously, he's been not under the weather. That's probably not the right terminology to use, but clearly hampered by something all of this year so far. But it was good to see him clunking marks. He was getting around, mobile as always, and looked very good.
Just an all-round unbelievable performance. I don't think there was a single area of the game that we really could have approached or started any better. I agree with Matt. That's definitely the best first quarter I can remember in my 25 years as a Crows fan. I don't recall, just rocking up in such dominance. And I think pre-game, the whole talk about, the Dogs are the best midfield. And, I'm a big subscriber to that. They are a very good midfield, but they're gettable the other way. And it was, if we could just match them, we'd absolutely, I think we could belt the brakes off them. And that's, we went well above and beyond that. It was just complete dominance in every facet of the game. It just, I'm again lost for words. And I think, the last 2 weeks we traditionally struggle in those primetime standalone slots against the big teams to come out and win, 2 games the way that we have, 2 completely different ways, and play with some genuine intent and ferocity, I think, and get the job done on the national stage. And, you tune into the media on Friday and the talk about the Crows is positive. I think that's been a really, really encouraging thing for us. It's not normal. We're not used to it, to lead off like that in such big moments. It was just absolutely fantastic. And yeah.
The media truly is going where the wind blows when it comes to the Crows this year. Few people, not naming names, but I'll name initials, KC. They did put a line through us a few weeks ago after the Richmond win. They thought Phil Thorpe can't get his back right, put a line through the Crows, but goes out and clunks some marks, kicks a few goals, and suddenly all those doubters are now really praising the Crows more than you'd ever envisioned after what was a pretty mediocre start to the year. I guess whether it's right or wrong criticism, I think it probably was fair criticism for most parts for the start of the year, but now we can really look at moving forward and playing some really good new football, which we've seen the last few weeks.
And I think that's probably, the most encouraging thing, I think, is that you don't necessarily have to be a side that wins straight out of the middle every week, and you can probably survive. I was talking a few weeks ago on Twitter about, we had this midfield that to me felt really one-paced and didn't feel like they were doing too much once they got the ball in hand. And I think the most exciting thing for me post-bye, there's probably been two things. One of them is I watched Sam Berry, and over those 2 weeks, I don't know what happened, but you watch him play now, and he's obviously been great at getting first to the ball and getting his hands in the contest all year, and you watch him now, and it's all forward-driven stuff. He's kicking it inside 50. He's giving the right handballs at the right times. There's a couple of clearances in that first quarter on the weekend where, Peatling's running past, and instead of going back and taking the kick, he just flicks the handball off the ground and takes the advantage. He's always been a great blocker, but you see now because he's becoming a threat, teams are paying more attention to him. It's freeing up the Dawson guys, the Dawsons and the Saligos, and I also feel like it's allowing Peatling to play a more natural defensive role, which he's done the last couple of weeks, in particular going to Smith and Richards in the last 2 weeks. I just feel like Bez's evolution into this forward attacking driven player is exactly what we needed to balance that midfield mix and let everyone play to their natural strengths. And then I think the other thing that's really encouraging is you bring in a guy like Hugo Hawker-Hahn, you take a bit of load off Wayne out of the back half. There's an obvious shift. We're averaging plus 20 handballs over the last 2 games, more than what we have been the first couple of weeks. There's an obvious desire in my mind to change angles and kick shorter out of the back half. And I think we spoke about this last week, that the Dogs, if you can break that first line, they're gettable. And if you can get through, and I think that really showed. We scored 8 goals from defensive half last week. It's not exactly easy to do on any given day to rack up 50 points from your back half against anyone, regardless of who you're playing. The Dogs scored 6 goals from forward half. So, once you get through that line, you're really home and hosed. And I think that combined with our pressure, those 3 things, I think post-bye have been the 3 things that stood out to me. And I think they were sort of the things that we'd all been saying all season. And I think Nixie spoke about it before the North game, and he said, we want to bring that handball game into it. And we had that fantastic quarter against North, and it was, okay, it's North. And then we had the Hawthorn game, and that was a bit of a setback. And then coming out after the bye, I feel like it's been probably similar to last year when we played Hawthorn in Tassie heading into a bye, and you come out the other side with this kind of reinvigorated side that's playing this really, you can just see in the intent, the attack-minded, the bite the kick off, back yourself in. And I think that's what us and I've definitely been asking for all year. And I wasn't sure if the coaching staff would have the, almost the balls to, go out there and say, hey, let's make a pretty significant change to the way we play. Let's get away from not trying to lose games. Let's get out there and try and win them. And they have so far. So hopefully we continue that, because I genuinely think that is a game style that will hold up come September.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I threw the comment a couple of weeks ago, probably more ironically and in hope, saying that last year after we played Hawthorn, we didn't lose another home and away game after that for the rest of the year. Well, who knows? Maybe you go on some sort of run and do something ridiculous like that again. But just the attacking nature of the group over the last 2 weeks has been really, really promising. And like you said, Dose, the evolution of that midfield, it's a small sample size, obviously, within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But if they can keep playing like that, then, that all of a sudden the midfield doesn't really look too bad. And obviously last week you do that without Isaac Rankin running around there. It's just impressive and very encouraging to see, and something that I hope for the rest of the year we can see them keep up.
And I think even like this week, no Isaac. It's not like Josh got a bunch of CBAs this week. He's out of there. So you don't really have what I guess we would consider the most creative spark. But having Saligo run through there and have a really solid performance, I thought. And then when you've got Sam Berry, holding down that sort of launching back end. And I mean, that is, I think there's a legitimate argument that Jordan Dawson has played one of the best quarters of football ever. Do you have 8 disposals, 3 goals? And they were all the goals was sort of a little bit, different in their own ways. Just when you've got a captain that leads you out the blocks like that, it's very nice to have. And he does it all round. And I can't imagine how that lifts a group. You watch this guy who, from seems pretty reserved and like a pretty quiet dude who doesn't really like the spotlight too much, and he goes out and plays, like that. And I think we've said it every week for the last 6 weeks about, Jordan Dawson's good, and then every week he seems to top his performance from the week before. I don't know how he goes. I don't know how he goes any further than what he did on Thursday night. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard.
I think it was his second highest rated game so far as a Crow, but in terms of in terms of leadership and getting a victory against a very good team, it was, I would say, one of the best captain performances you could say in the last few years I've ever seen. And look, to get 3 goals in the first, I think 10 minutes of the quarter, I mean, and to just put the game basically to rest after that is just unbelievable. And the Bulldogs, they do rely heavily on their midfield. And I think leading into this game, a lot of us are probably concerned how our midfield would match against theirs, because they probably have easily a top 3 best midfield in the league, I would say. And then they just didn't look threatening at all, and our boys just absolutely turned it on. Even just the underrated players like a Zach Taylor, Sam Berry, they just absolutely played out their skins, and it was just I can't really name a single player that didn't play a good game on Thursday, and that's unheard of for the Crows, really.
Plus 20 contested ball, plus 30 post-clearance contested possession. I'm just having a look now. What else? Plus 12 contested marks. I thought the contested marking was a real feat the other night. Plus 12 post-clearance ground ball. Just an absolute belting around the contest. And then, you look at the outside game and it's plus 42 marks. Just Lockie McAndrew, plus 24 hitouts. All, like, the whole thing is just really, it's a perfect game. Plus 36 handballs. Like, it's just it's a belting on all fronts. In my mind, you win games on, you lock the foot in your front half, you win the ball out the middle, and you're able to move the ball from your back half. That game on Thursday night was an example of the Crows being absolutely great at all 3. Now, admittedly, the Dogs midfield, we came in and we said, this is where it could go pear-shaped, and it didn't. We really showed up. They were gettable, and we really put them to the sword. It was just so encouraging.
Yeah. No, 100%. Let's break down some of the individual performances. And we talked about Jordan Dawson, but final stats: 32 disposals, 3 goals, 7 marks, 8 tackles, 7 clearances. And like we said last week, we come in here every week and we go, yeah, that was a fantastic Jordan Dawson game. But how does he keep doing it? He's an incredible player. He's put himself into the Brownlow conversation, I think, now, even with missing those couple of games. He's phenomenal. I don't have the right words to sum him up that would appropriately, give him the credit he deserves, but he's just an incredible player.
On the Brownlow talk, I've been following his odds quite closely the last few weeks. He's risen from, I think, $51 to now $10, and I think if he has another 3-vote game this week, he'll probably be within the top 5 favourites. So, look, yeah. I think because he has missed 3 games this year, it has been done before. I think Nat Fyfe did it in 2015, and Gary Ablett Jr., I think, did it for the Gold Coast as well in 2013. So players can miss a few games here and there, but, as long as you're playing 3-vote games at least, say, 15 to 18 times a year, you could easily win the Brownlow. And, I would love to see Dawson lift the Charlie at the end of the year, because, there's a few accolades I'd love him to win above a Brownlow, but it would be so fitting after everything he's gone through this year, and to just back it up playing the best football you can possibly imagine watching as a Crows fan.
He still had 20 pressure acts as well. So it's not like it's all one-way running. I think we've always known that, Dawson's strengths are probably, which is crazy to say that his strengths are, almost more in the defensive side of his game, given what he does going forward. He's just such an all-round player. But, to have that sort of impact both ways, I think is just, it's truly remarkable. Off the top of my head, I struggle to think of a mid or a player in the AFL that is better at both ends. I know Nixie's often talked about, he wants 3 of him out there, and I'm sure every team would, but to have a guy that's so versatile and will just get it done. There's a goal, I think it was his second goal that he kicks, where Sam Berry gets a free kick for holding, and Dorse actually runs out the centre square with the ball, and you just watch him drift forward and absolutely burn Matt Kennedy, and the ball goes straight to him, and he kicks a goal, and it's like, that work rate is just not, it's not normal, it's not. That's why he's as good as what he is. He just works. In addition to being immensely skilled, he's just works so much harder than just about anyone else on the ground. And I think that's a real testament to him as a player.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, we could talk all night about him, really. We could say all the positive things in the world. Let's move on to, Riley Thilthorpe, who we mentioned a bit earlier, had 3 goals in the first quarter, took 7 marks throughout the game. I think when Lob went to him after quarter time, he got a little bit more quiet, but still did some good work around the ground, I thought. The main takeaway for me was just the fact that he didn't look scared or hurt, or I don't know what the most appropriate word would be for it, but he looked himself again. Basically, he was attacking the ball. He wasn't afraid to fly in those packs, and he was actually bringing it down at full stretch. And just looked himself.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it can't be easy for a guy that's had back issues that have just been these recurring. What seems like it's been going on the whole season to I guess mentally to get over that hump, what looked like completely, and get out there and play like that. And admittedly, the Dogs' key defenders aren't great, and Rory Lobb's probably the best of a bad bunch, without meaning too much disrespect. But it's not normal for me to witness someone doing what Thilthorpe did to that defence in one quarter on Thursday night. The way that he was positioned and his body work and his strength, he just looked back to being that real brute that we saw last year. And he had that intimidation factor about him. I kind of think they looked intimidated by his presence. And even when he wasn't marking it, he was bringing it to ground inside 50, and the Smalls went to work really well. He was dangerous all over the front half. And I think, that after quarter time, I have no doubt. And I guess it's hard as a player regardless. I'm sure after quarter time, he's kind of, as a few would have toned it down a little bit. But just unbelievable. When the game was there, he grabbed it with both hands.
I think it was a sign that him going a bit quiet after quarter time is probably a sign just to say, look, guys, I'm back. My back's fine. Here's your 3 goals. Game was essentially but pretty much over at quarter time. And look, this is going to be the biggest talking point for the Crows second half of the year if Thilthorpe is back to 2025 form. If we've got Dawson playing the way he is, we've got a defence that is just so absurdly rock solid. It's probably the best overall defence I've seen ever in the history of the Crows. There's been a few good ones we've had over the years, but I think this one is the most clean, most reliable. When you have players like Worrell down back, that just nothing gets past him for most weeks. But with Riley Thilthorpe playing the football he is, just based on that first quarter alone, if we can get him just playing like that, at least for most games for the second half of the year, there's no reason why we can't really make a good tilt to finish both in the top 4 and do something in the finals this year, because he is, I would say, probably the X factor or the overall one. Goals win you games, and when last year happened, he was the biggest reason why we rose up the ladder. Just a 60-goal season. He won't get 60 goals this year, but he can easily get back to his average of just kicking, I think, 2 or 3 goals a game if he is really truly back.
Yep. No, 100% agree. He's obviously a very key part for the side going forward. So if he plays like that every week, we're probably in a pretty good position. Sam Berry, your man, Matt, I saw a pretty cool stat. So we had 11 clearances on Thursday night, and 6 of those led directly to goals. That is unheard of. Absolutely insane for a player to have that much influence on the goals straight out the middle. Well, you can have clearances which sort of, put it in the area and then, a goal was kicked from that. But 6 of them literally directly led to goals. That's an unbelievable performance. And he's putting in a shift at the moment. He's improved off the scale, especially over the last couple of weeks, but all year, really.
He's one of the best players at Marvel Stadium I've seen in a Crows Guernsey. Live memories only, I can say that from. So it was another masterclass performance under the roof. He's just having one of those seasons where you just have to say, how has he actually managed to take his game to a level so elite, so high in such a short space of time? I've always been a big fan, but I never envisioned he would be one of our main players at the same time.
Mm. Yeah, no, me too, mate. He's always he's never really been looked at as wow, he's a best 23 amazing player. There's always been the midfield mix. They go, oh yeah, there could be Peatling or Berry or, a number of these players before it was Crouch or Berry. And now you look at him and he's added that attacking side of his game to it. He can fit in there. You don't really have to worry about him too much. And he's just exploding. I mean, he had 29 touches. He's taken 3 marks. He's had 4 tackles. Like I say, 11 clearances. He's just, 2026 Sam Berry is a very, very good football player.
I think the most encouraging thing, and I'm just looking back to kind of the receipts I kept on myself, A few weeks ago we were chatting, and he wasn't exactly having that release outside. We weren't getting inside to outside very easily. It kind of seemed like we were getting the footy and we were either handballing to a guy under more pressure or just not getting it out cleanly. And I think the most encouraging thing, probably over the last month, but particularly the last 2 games, is you look at what he has done and how, like you were saying, 6 goals from 11 clearances is just, that's crazy. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And to have him actually damage, and it's not necessarily he has to be the one that gets out and generates, all the score. But the assisted territory he's handballing to blokes. There's a passage in the first quarter on Thursday night where, Hawker Hahn's running past and he's not exactly in a great spot, but Bez just handballs to him and he kind of cuts back in and, there's a drop ball inside 50 and the Crows kick a goal from it. He's embracing that, I think, that little bit more of that dangerous side to the game. He's giving those handballs that he should be giving. He's freeing Dorse up a lot as well. I noticed that Dorse seems to be getting a lot cleaner out of stoppage and Bez is finding him in better spots. It's just that to me was always the key, is that, if they're going to roll with Berry and Peatling in the stoppage at 80% of times, you probably want one of them, or you need one of them contributing on the scoring and territory end to go against the best midfields, and he's definitely started to do that, which I truly think was the only thing separating him from some of the best mids in the competition. We don't necessarily. I never doubted his ability to get hands on the footy and win the contest, but I was worried that under a coach like Van Berlo, he would struggle to develop that attacking edge as that real inside mid, and he seems like that's really come on quickly, which is so exciting and should really be celebrated.
Yeah. 100% agree, mate. Another bloke who I sort of want to talk about, who maybe isn't necessarily the first name that we always talk about or give compliments to, James Borlase had a fantastic game Thursday night, just locked down, between Aaron Norton and a couple of the others up there, but 6 marks, 15 touches himself, a couple of tackles. He was just as solid as a rock. I mean, the whole defence was as solid as a rock, but Jimmy Borlase was very good.
Is anyone over disappointed if he keeps this form up and Butts does go? I mean, to me, it kind of feels like this is a like for like. He's come in and he's just playing at an elite level, and I feel like the Crows' key defensive stocks over the last couple of years, that's just what they've done. So, full credit to Jack Homsch and co, because it's been a serious development path. I mean, I think James Borlase is probably one of the most slighted players in recent Crows memory when he gets the call up, and the general reaction is, here we go again. This year, he holds his spot, in my opinion. He can't be the one to go out if Keane does come back. It's probably got to be Nick Murray, which is again just a testament to, we have 5 at the moment, when fit, 5 genuine key defenders who I think would start for most teams in the competition. I mean, I'm pretty sure all 5 of them walk in over Rory Lobb or O'Donnell or these guys that the Dogs had on Thursday night. So they're just 5 really solid players with a couple of superstars. It's awesome.
I think
for sure.
I would say probably he is the most improved player overall out of anyone on the Crows team, just given how lowly rated he was by virtually every Crows fan. There wasn't many that had good things to say about him, and just based on his early years, I didn't really think he was AFL standard. There was so many moments he just got caught out in defence and opposition would just run riot. But this year, particularly the last few weeks, he has really become best 23, and as I fully agree with Dozy. I don't think he will be removed from the team to make way for Keane. They'll have to probably be Nick Murray. And touching on the Western Bulldogs defence and how they should probably strengthen their defence, you look at the players that we have. There's going to be quite a few that I'm not sure if they're out of contract or whatnot. I'm not entirely sure there, but there are players that would walk into most teams' best 23 that. Look, you look at the players that we have, like with Borlase, Jordan Butts. I don't see both of them staying at the club next year. I think most likely one of them will be shipped off, and I think a Western Bulldogs kind of team, they would need a good lockdown defender like a Jordan Butts, and they'll probably throw good money at him to come to the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah. No, 100%. Obviously, we saw a bit of that late last year and through the trade period. They were interested in him. So wouldn't be a shock to see, a bit of attention. And James Borlase, I think, in the media on Friday or Saturday was getting some attention as well. Obviously, you want to hold on to at least one of them because you don't want to lose too many for obvious reasons. But it'd be very, very interesting to see which one of those boys, if they do head off at the same time. But we'll wait and see. And also just a quick shout out to Kane Corns for saying that the Dogs' defence was no worse, or their tools were no worse than what ours were on Thursday night. That was a shockingly bad call.
I actually like a lot of Kane's wider opinions on the game, but I think sometimes, not that I think when he talks about the Crows, sometimes I find it descends into a fair bit of negativity, and I'm not sure how much of that is related to him being either a 300 game Port Adelaide player or rejected by the Crows after 2011. But yeah, it's probably a combination of the both. That was one of the most bizarre football takes I think I've ever heard. So yeah, crazy.
Yeah, 100%, definitely up there. Before we move on to feedback from the listeners, boys, is there anyone else who you want to talk about or point out that stood out?
I have two really quick ones. I think you want to talk about going with your captain on Thursday night, Josh Rochelle. Well done. He's our top scorer so far this year. And I think I'm a big advocate of getting him in the middle when Ranks comes back, particularly part time, just to give Ranks that chop out. But that creativity up forward, and that I don't think anyone's having a crack at him, and him going soft at the contest anymore. He seems like he's really become a proper small, dangerous forward. It's just hard at it. Seems to read the flight and the bounce of the ball really well. And you can kind of see the soccer background come out sometimes with some of the stuff that he does. He's just a real live wire up there. And the other one I just wanted to quickly shout out, Hugo Hall-Kahan, cult figure, man. Like, this guy is just, he should never ever come out of this team. He's just unbelievable. And he looks so confident on the ball. And again, credit to the coaching staff for getting in this kid with this real skill set of, attack-minded footy and just saying to him, mate, run with it. And I think it's really helped free up Wayne as well a little bit, because it was Wayne or bust for a while there. And now it's like, yeah, okay, there's two genuine outlets coming out of the back half, which is just, fantastic.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. How about you, Matt? Were there any players that stood out that you wanted to touch on?
Oh, yeah, I was just about to say Hugo as well. Since he's come in the team, we've just looked so much better, so much cleaner, way more dynamic. He won't come out the team at all. He'd have to have a real few bad weeks, and that could happen being a first-year player. But I think he's just so overall complete, and he looks like a 100 gamer out there. He's been an absolute revelation, and yeah, long may this run of form continue, because this mid-season draft, in previous years we brought in players we thought might be okay at AFL level, and they haven't played, or they've only played a few games and left. And I think this is a real breakthrough for the mid-season draft for the AFL, the Crows.
I think I posted a video today of some of the edits of our transition the last two games. I think there were 5, and Hall-Kahan's involved in 4 of them, I reckon. So whether it's him being the main contributor or a guy in the chain, it's just great to see a player that I guess brings so much offensively into this side that has struggled out of the back half with that. So yeah.
Yep, 100%. All right, let's move on to some feedback from the listeners, and there was plenty of it. And we'll get to another post that we put up in a moment that's going to spark a bit of debate, and definitely did on Facebook over the last 24 hours ago or so. But at Proper Crows Pod, if you're listening, you want to give your feedback, you want to chuck us a message, you want to hear us talk about anything specifically on the pod, you'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, absolutely everywhere. James Payne says that was the most complete performance I've seen in quite a while. How lucky we are to have Jordan Dawson. HHK, great again, needs to be a permanent fixture in the team going forward, touching on what we've just said there. Brad Henderson says HHK was great again. And Tyson Moffat said flawless tick onto the Ds. One more, which you boys will enjoy. Paul Birdsey says, not quite perfect. Apparently, Phil Thorpe walked through the centre square 3 times. I thought that was a good comment from the Birdman. But, yeah, pretty simple. I don't think anyone was unhappy on Thursday night, and if they were just picking at reasons to be unhappy for the sake of it.
I'd appreciate someone perhaps in the feedback telling me why an all-Australian centre-half forward with a bad back's being run through the midfield in a blowout. I think that was strange. The 3 CBAs, I'd rather him on cotton wool, or want to know why he goes through there at all, to be honest. But, I think anyone unhappy with any aspect of Thursday night needs their head read a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's move on to our votes. And this is going to be very, very tricky, because there were plenty of players who could be in the votes here. Matt, let's start with your 1.
Probably give the one to Josh Rochelle. A 4-goal game is it's an unbelievable effort, and he did go through a real bad run of form, I thought, for probably 3 to 4 weeks. But he's back to, we know how good he can be. So, look, if he can continue having the season he is, he's going to be a huge asset coming in the year, that's for sure. And look, I did have my doubts about Rochelle. Even like 2 weeks ago, I can't remember who he played. It was a real slow game where he just kind of just didn't look himself, and then to play the way he did against the Bulldogs was just unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%. Dose, how about you, mate? Who gets you one?
My one's going to Sam Berry. 29 disposals, 11 ground ball gets, 11 clearances, 437 metres gained, 5 inside 50s, 10 score involvements. What an all-round midfield game. That if we can get 50% of that attacking intent every week, I actually think Sam Berry becomes potentially a long-term midfield solution for a club that's been looking for that exact kind of player. That game reminded me of on Thursday, which I thought was very fitting, was Lachie Neale. That's a very Lachie Neale sort of game. Win it around the middle, dish it to your teammates, help everyone else. Generate score. That was which I thought was interesting, given that we're apparently in for Lachie Neale. That was just a very Lachie Neale like game to me. That's how it struck me.
Yeah, I rate that. And maybe not with Collingwood's $3 million contract or whatever it is they're offering, but he'd be very lucky new game. That's a good way to put it, mate. I like it. My one, I'm giving to Jimmy Ball-Ace. Not a player who you're probably going to see me give a vote to at any other stage, but it was too solid of a game for me to ignore on Thursday night. Matt, what about your two?
It's a bit of a surprise one. I'm going to give it to Rory Laird. Probably his best game for the year overall. There was just probably not a minute that went by where I don't think he didn't have a disposal. It was just one of those complete performances from a flawless leader, Josh. Really enjoyed his game on Thursday last week.
I definitely don't disagree. That's the best game I've seen him play all year. And that was a very, very good game. I also don't think it excuses some of the last 4 months, but topic for another time, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Who gets your two, mate?
I struggle to look past anyone, but Joshy Rochelle. 4 goals, obviously the first quarter. I think it was he was probably the one that was, looked like he was just causing chaos around the footy. Was when it entered that forward 50, it was kind of like, where's Josh? Oh, there he is. He was everywhere. I don't think we can really say enough about, what he's doing up forward this year, and even for him, to go in from starting his month in the midfield and then obviously moving back into the forward line where he's been great, speaks, I think, to, what seems to be his flaw, or seemingly, leadership, and 9 score involvements, 4 goals, just an unbelievable performance from him.
Absolutely. He gets my 2 votes as well. But now, if either of you don't have Jordan Dawson at your 3, I'm stopping the recording right now and never releasing the episode, so I assume.
Why don't we just do 1 and 2 every week and just, we'll just have a permanent Jordan Dawson 3 votes at this point. I think it's astounding. It's not normal. We're not appreciating it. We appreciate it so much, and I still think at times we don't fully appreciate what we're witnessing. I don't just one day we'll look back when we have kids and talk to them about how good Jordan Dawson was.
Yeah, I fully agree, mate.
3 votes for the Western Bulldogs for bringing back that cursed Guernsey. I was actually reading into the history of that Guernsey. Apparently, they were in the 1935 VFL season. They were going to have that as a permanent Guernsey, but all the Guernseys shrunk in the wash, so they had to get rid of them and revert back to the old Guernsey. So then they brought it back in 2003, and Matthew Lloyd kicked 9 goals against them in a thrashing, and then obviously last Thursday. So props to the Western Bulldogs for not doing their research and bringing back an absolute shit show of a Guernsey.
I think I saw that. I think in that 1935 season they went 1 win, 14 losses, and 2 draws or something.
2 and 14, I think it was.
Not sure I'd pick that. Not sure I'd pick that Guernsey.
It's a bit nostalgic. I like
nah. Yeah, fully agree. I'm a big fan of the heritage rounds, but if you've had performances like that in that Guernsey, that's probably not the one that you look back on and bring back. But that's all right. It works for us, so it's all good. Next up, we have an interesting topic. And if you're listening at the moment and you follow us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, we put it up last night. The Adelaide Crows Mount Rushmore. And now let's just preface this by saying of players, because I feel like Malcolm Blight gets up there if you're talking all-time figures, or maybe a Max Bashir or Bill Sanders or someone like that. But players, purely players. We reckon, or at least I reckon, Rue, McLeod, and Tex are locked in to the three. Obviously, Rue, Brownlow medalist, one of the greatest ever. Bungie, 2 times Norm Smith medalist. Tex, we know what he's been through, leading goal kicker of all time. I think they're locked in. Do we have any debates with those ones?
Not at all.
No.
For me personally, Tex
No.
is my number.
Beautiful.
For me personally, Tex is my number one, but that's all very much because I have watched all 310 of his games and just been through his whole career, and there's not a player I love more. But in terms of overall, I think the best player would have to be Rue. It's a toss-up between Rue and Macca in that domain, actually. Like, Rashudo was a most unbelievable player to watch as a kid. Like, he was probably the main reason why I really got hooked onto AFL, was watching him as a young fan back in the day.
100%.
I do wonder if McLeod had won that Brownlow when he should have got 3 votes in the last round and got none. If this topic would, if we'd have this Rue McLeod debate as much as but I guess as much as people do, or if it'd kind of be a straight McLeod number 1, Rue number 2, probably 2 of the best players to probably ever play the game, and they both played for the Adelaide Footy Club, which is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. So 3 locked in. That leaves 1 spot left on the Mount Rushmore of Crows. On Facebook, we've got a pretty consistent response of Darren Jarman, Ben Hart. There were a few shouts at Tyson Edwards, which I thought was a pretty decent shout. And, of course, Tony Modra are the 4 main ones that we're getting in responses. We had a few, the Stiffy Johncock actually got a few mentions, which I was a bit curious about, of Mount Rushmores, but that's all right.
Good player.
We love Stiffy. So who do we reckon, boys? I mean, Tony Modra and Darren Jarman probably stick out for me, given, Jars, we probably don't win those 2 grand finals without him. But hell, we don't even make the first grand final probably without him. Tony Modra, we know the heights that he got to. You could probably throw Eddie Betts in that conversation as a more recent, similar-ish sort of figure. Who have we got? Who have we got at the 4? So I think it's a very, very interesting debate.
I think for me, I will put Dawson as 4 because he has to be considered one of the best captains, not only just for the Crows, but in the last 20 years of AFL. It's what we've seen him go through this year and what he hopefully will bring to the table in years to come. You probably have him in the Mount Rushmore. He will only get better, I hope. But in terms of, I think overall Mount Rushmore, Tony Modra, you look at how many goals he actually kicked per game. He was a true larger-than-life cult figure, not at the club long enough to probably be considered an all-time legend, and wasn't involved in the premierships either. But he, as a kid, the first real big power forward I laid eyes on was watching Tony Modra highlights. There was games where he was kicking 13, 9. He's not your typical back in the day, like just stocky full forward like a locker. He could do a lot more than just take a chest mark in the goal square and kick a goal. He was an absolute freak. Like, you would never see numbers like that from a Crow ever again. Like players that can kick 9, 10, 13 goals and kick 100+ goals in a season. So, look, Modra, I would say maybe would be on the Mount Rushmore for that. But in terms of pure leadership, pure quality, a genuine one of the great players of the game, Jordan Dawson is my number 4 for the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I'd probably look at it as Dawes gets there. Yeah, like you say, especially if he does bring a flag and all of that sort of stuff. I think it's probably too soon to put him on that Mount Rushmore currently, because if you look at it and you use the argument that Mods wasn't around long enough, then Dawes hasn't been there the same amount of time as Mods has. So you probably can't put him in from that side of the argument. Darren Jarman is a very, very solid argument. 5 goals in a couple of grand finals. I think someone in the comments, it might have been our mate Jake Perkins, said if they did Norm Smith voting the way that they do now, he probably at least has one of those around his neck instead of McLeod. I thought that was a big call. Obviously, McLeod, 2 big games in grand finals, but probably a fair call, you could say. What are your thoughts, Dose? Who have you got sitting around that 4?
Well, I think it's a bit interesting. I find it a bit interesting for me personally, because I guess I wasn't alive for the flags, and I didn't really see these, the Wrens and the Modras and all that, really at their peak. So it's a bit tough for me. I think, certainly looking at it in my lifetime, and catching the back end of Rue and Macca and watching Tex's whole career, I think it will end, agreed, as if I had to put one now personally, I think I would put Jordan Dawson, purely banking on him playing another 100 games of at least of this just unbelievable footy that he's playing. But I think, public opinion as well. I think most people are going one of a Wren or a Jarman or a Modra. So I think it's really take your pick of any of those guys back then. But for me, it's got to be. I think it'll end up being Dawson. Yeah, I agree. If he brings home one flag, I think that'll definitely have him there for just about everyone, and probably never have to buy a beer in Adelaide again. Not that he'll probably have to do that anyway, but definitely won't have to buy a beer in Adelaide ever again.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, yeah, for me, I'm probably leaning Tony Modra, I think, purely. And obviously, none of us will really love to see the heights of it and probably can't appreciate as much. And there are probably some people listening right now screaming at their device that they're listening to going, you have no idea. I saw a few people in the comments saying to get Tex out and put Modra in. I thought that was probably a little bit stiff, but he's probably the one that sticks out for me. And I think Tony Modra probably sits in there at the fourth spot currently, but I do agree that, Dawes gets there.
I think it's interesting because we're obviously, I guess, a bit of a different generation that didn't really see these guys at their peak. So we comment from what we've seen. But yeah, I think Tony Modra, as far as I can tell, is still the biggest star in Adelaide based on what happened 30 years ago. So must have been a handy player, on and off the field. So
took two Mark of the Years, or I think even 3 Mark of the Years, maybe 2, but both of them were against the Kangaroos from the same position the goals were. That 90, I don't think I'm not
93.
great with years. No, I'm not great with years when it comes to 90s, but the one over not Robberin, who was a North player, the big bold guy,
Mick Martin.
Mick Martin, the one over him, he just hung there for a solid, it felt like about 10 seconds, and he just grabs it. I think the ball was going in for a goal anyway, but I think that's one of the greatest pure hangers I've ever seen an AFL player take.
Yeah. So I think he won it. So he won it 3 times, I reckon. It might have been 93. Was it 97, 98 as well? I reckon he might have won it in grand final years, or 95.
I think it was 98 for the one over Mick Martin in the goal square, because I do recall the scoreboard. Pretty sure it was a 1998 season scoreboard.
Yeah. No, 100%. By the way, that is the most Matt campaign comment I've ever heard. But I think so. But he obviously flew to insane heights regularly, could kick, like you said, mate, bags of 9, 10, up to 13 goals in a game. Obviously hampered by a few injuries and probably would have played in those flags had it not been for a couple of those injuries, unfortunately. Went to Freo late in the piece, but I think he took another Mark of the Year while he was there, or maybe a Goal of the Year. But obviously an incredible player.
Pretty sure it was Mark of the Year. It was against Geelong in his first game there, I think.
There you go. Fair introduction. But like Doe said, he's still talked about as one of the hottest commodities in the state, and he hasn't played footy for the last 25 or so years. So a fair player, that's for sure. So what do we reckon as a group consensus? Are we going with Modra currently, or do we reckon a Dawson or a Jarman? Or
we'll go Dawson. I think he is the best captain in the league right now. He probably will be considered a top 3 best player in the league over the next 5 years. So I'm going to say Dawson. That's just in terms of long-term predicting of how he actually fares in for his last, I would say, he's 29 years old this year. So I would say he's probably still got 4 to 5 very good years left in him. So that's my prediction. He'll be one of the greatest Crows of all time.
Yeah.
Agree with everything campaign said. That's a spot on.
Yeah. 100%. I reckon we'll do a little edit of both Modra and Dawson in there, because I personally can't split them, but we'll put it to the people on Facebook. So we'll get another post out probably maybe tomorrow, day after. Let us know your thoughts. We'll do it as a poll, and then we'll lock it in for what we think for sure. But Dawson and Modra, probably 2 of the more popular ones, as I say, Darren Jarman. But a really interesting conversation. So if you're going to a pub with your mates this weekend, you're a Crow supporters, wheel that one out at the table. That'll have you talking for a little while. Let's move on to proper good and proper crap this week. Now, proper good, just the whole of Thursday night. That's probably what I'll start with. The whole night was great. to be somewhat favoured by the umpires in Victoria. That was nice to see. Good to be on the other side of that for once.
First time for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't say we'll expect it again, but it was nice to experience it for once. Matt, what's your proper good for the week, mate?
Proper good. The Socceroos against Turkey. What a absolutely amazing game that was to watch with you, Ben, and hopefully we can get a few more wins in this World Cup. So that was my proper good. But in terms of the Adelaide Crows, proper good. Jordan Dawson, can't go past that. I think we can rave on about him
Yeah,
for the next hour and just talk about that first quarter alone. But yeah, it's the ultimate captain's performance and one of his best games for the Crows so far.
absolutely. Dose, how about you, mate? What was your proper good?
Yeah, I'm omitting Jordan Dawson from proper good because I feel like if I say it every week, it's obvious that that's exactly what it should be every single week. So I'm just going to change it up a little bit and go Sam Berry. I thought, yeah, Sam Berry getting the ball forward through his teammates and through himself. That's made me extremely happy.
Yeah,
So Sam Berry for me.
rate it. Proper crap of the week. Ooh. Probably stick to the Socceroos theme that Campaign just brought up there, and the AFL scheduling a match at the same time despite having the World Cup fixture for about 6 months or so. That's probably my proper crap of the week, and also them trying to insert themselves with every big moment from the weekend and posting highlights like the Rochelle Tim Cahill celebration. It's a strange one from me. I get it, but
Yeah, you completely read my mind. I was about to say much of the same thing. It's kind of reminded me of when the AFL released the fixtures for the 2023 season during the Socceroos Argentina game. There was, I mean, you don't have to. You know, you're the biggest league in the country. You know, and that'll be the case probably for the rest of my lifetime. You don't have to insert yourself in a 4-week tournament that the entire country is just united by watching, and it's just a bit embarrassing. The AFL, they'll never learn. They'll never be less childish when it comes to this kind of thing.
yeah, 100%. What about you, Dose? Any proper craps for you this week?
My biggest proper crap has to be Hakan Çalhanoğlu, saying that he will dominate Australia because they're more talented. Eat it, mate. Fuck you. That's where it lands. Go the Socceroos, by the way, boys. That was absolutely fantastic. I don't think there's a Crows related proper crap we could call from this week, to be honest. They're really nothing bad at all.
It's going to be a very eventful Saturday. You got the Socceroos at 4:30, then the Crows at 12:45. So there's a bit of a gap in between of whether you have a power nap, then head to the hill, or you maybe watch the game delayed, like I probably might with the family, and then head down to Adelaide Oval. So it's a few options. SBS On Demand is doing an incredible job at this World Cup, by the way.
Absolutely, mate. Personally, I'll be powering through. You'll see me down at the district or the drive at 4:30 for kickoff of that one. And I think maybe just to hang around the city and just maybe a few espresso martinis could be on the menu between 7 and 12. But we'll see how we go. And yeah, just power through. I reckon easiest way to do it.
Amen, brother.
What have we? Facts. I'll see you there, mate. I know I'll see you around the place. SANFL. Adelaide went down to North by a singular point, 12-7-79 to 12-8-80 down at Prospect. We had goals to Blake Drury, who kicked 4, Finbar kicked 3, Ned Atkinson, Archie Ludowick, Rob, Richards and Scholl all kicked 1 each. Stats-wise, I didn't watch this game, so I can't tell you too much about the actual play itself. But stats-wise, we got Charlie Edwards, who had 24 touches, 8 clearances and 6 tackles, putting together a nice SANFL season. But don't think we'll be seeing him step up back to the AFL anytime soon if the midfield keeps playing the way that it is. Sid made a relatively successful, not return, he played last week, but his second game back with 17 touches and 6 clearances. Mark Keane was solid again with 15 touches, 4 marks and 6 rebounding 50s. So look, a decent performance by those blokes who are probably on the fringe of the AFL side. Luke Pedler, obviously with his calf injury, opens up a bit of a spot for someone to come in. Don't know who that will be, particularly at this stage, but obviously that spot gets opened up. Let's talk about Saturday, the game that we're looking to see who the team comes in for. So Melbourne, Saturday afternoon, Adelaide Oval. I think it's a 12:30 start. Melbourne just beat the Bombers, not particularly convincing on Saturday afternoon, just gone. They have their up and down weeks. Sometimes they look really good and sometimes they're just a bit meh, which is probably more what we expected coming into this season. But What do we think, boys? Where's the game won and lost, and what changes do we think we make? Obviously, Pedler will go out, and I think I read today that Rankin was likely to be available for selection.
It's going to be the absolute hardest team selection of the year for Matthew Nixon Co. because who actually comes out after a performance like that? I think Keane will probably come in for Nick Murray, and Rankin probably comes in. Who would Rankin come in for? It's a few options here and there.
It's probably a
Probably
straight spot for
Pedler.
Peds, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it always has to be a player for a player. In terms of, positional, I think they can make some adjustments and hopefully flick some magnets around.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree. So yeah, I probably agree with those changes there, Campaign. It's that's probably about what we're looking for. In terms of the actual game itself, where do we think it's won and lost, boys? We obviously Dose hit the nail on the head last week in terms of getting past the Western Bulldogs midfield, and we managed to do that. Melbourne are a bit of a different team to the Dogs, but where do we think we get the job done on Saturday?
I've been copying it on the chat because I'm thinking Cozzy Pickett could run right, but I think we'll be fine in that department. Like, he is one of the most impactful players in the league, and that's why he gets paid the big bucks. But if we can shut him down, should be a comfortable win, I imagine. Melbourne, they don't play well outside of the MCG. They won all their games this year at the G, so they're 1-5, I think, away from the G this year, which is an unusual stat. It kind of reminds me a bit of Gold Coast, how they win pretty much every home game, then they can't perform away. Melbourne, their record against the Crows is a bit up and down. We beat them last year, although we started that game absolutely horrendously. That was a very concerning first half, but then Rankin kicked 5 goals straight, which is why I'm hoping he's fit to play and plays this week because he could be the difference again. I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable win. The wet weather might actually suit us because I watched us play against Geelong. We are a very good wet weather team, very clean wet weather team. We can play under a roof even better. But yeah, I think it'll be a pretty comfortable win. Had my doubt, I think, last week, and I kind of suggested that it might be one of those losses that we shouldn't lose. But more I think about it, I think it's going to be a minimum 5-goal win for the Crows in a bit of a low-scoring game.
Yeah, fair call. Dose, how about you, Matt?
I think Melbourne's a little bit different than sort of what we faced for the Dogs. I think Melbourne play I think everyone's quite familiar with the helter-skelter brand that Melbourne play, and they kind of play that, for lack of a better term, that heavy metal football of, just run and carry, kick the ball, get it going, one of the fastest teams we've seen, but they are also very young and they are inexperienced. I feel like, we think of Melbourne 2/3 of the way through the year very different than how we thought of Melbourne preseason, as these guys are a genuine finals wildcard team, where preseason we were probably thinking they were going to be down the bottom rungs of the ladder. That's all driven from, this young, energetic group, I think, that play that really attacking brand, but at the same time, they don't always convert. They're not exactly a team that wants to take a lot and control the ball. They don't exactly they're not efficient all the time going inside 50. They have their days where they're really on, and then they have their days where they're off. They're not a good ground ball team. They're not really they're a good pressure team, and they go all right with pressuring the opponent. But if we have a game like Thursday where we're able to move the ball to the outside and, almost play a bit of keepings off, there's a good chance that we get over the line. I think their ability to generate territory, Melbourne, when they get the game on their terms is pretty dangerous. But like Campaign was saying before, I do have a lot of faith in our one-on-one defending, provided we can stop the ball coming in completely flat and fast. And then it's just about, can we generate the rebound off that? Which again, if we play like the last couple of weeks, I don't see them winning. I also think it's inevitable at some point we can't win the last 9 games of the year every year, and we will have to drop a game. It honestly wouldn't surprise me if we had an off week and dropped this game as a one-off. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we got the job done. I think it's really up to which version of this young Melbourne side turns up. But I think Crows by 5 goals. I think if we can hold up in defence, I think we can generate enough scores out of the back half playing with this new sort of offensive-minded brand to get over the line by 5 or 6 goals. So it's fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you sort of took the words right out of my mouth. I think that's 5 goals is about right. I think, like you say, Melbourne are a young and exciting team, but obviously still very inexperienced, so you don't really know what you're going to get with them. But yeah, 5 goals probably about right at home. Not quite sure of the exact weather on Saturday, but that's probably about what I'd be expecting, I think.
I'll
I
give
said,
the exact weather as we speak: 15 degrees and a bit of rain expected.
I'm just going to have a look at what the line is on Sportsbet. It's 3 goals on Sportsbet, the line. So, you know, um, yeah, I think maybe the rain might have brought that down a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
beautiful.
on the topic of games that we could drop for the rest of the year, we've got a very favourable draw from here onwards. And I guess with the Swans and Fremantle away games to come, I'm confident we can probably surprise Sydney and maybe get a win there. We won by 90 points there last year. Obviously, Sydney are a much better team this year, but I think lately so are we. We've been a much better team the last few weeks. If we continue this form, you never know. But I am I'm gonna look at the picture and say probably 2 more losses for the rest of the year. Fremantle away, I don't really think we'll have much of a chance of winning if they are still in the form they're in right now, and we just never play well in Perth. So I think that's probably I wouldn't say certain loss, but it's a loss I would definitely expect us to have. And then I'm struggling to find what our second loss will be, or maybe we only lose one more game for the rest of the year. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. A lot can go wrong from now to the round 24, but I'm very confident that we'll win enough games to finish top 4.
I said
Yeah,
before we
look,
started this month run after the bye that I felt, given where we were positioned and how we were going against the 8, if we made it out of this month after the bye with a 3-1 result, my exact words, we should be firmly within the top 6. I said 2-2 was par given how we were playing before the bye. I felt like that would have been an accurate reflection of where we were at, but we seem to have come out of the bye and made the adjustments that we've sort of been asking for and looking for all year. So I kind of similar to campaign. I can see maybe anywhere between 1 and 3 losses before the end of the year. I think Freo and Sydney will start as outsiders with, and that's fair enough. And then I also think at some point we are due to drop a game as a favourite. We haven't done that in 2 years now, and just statistically, it's near impossible to do that for 2 years in a row. So there will be a day that I think that we have a stinker inevitably at some point. But even then, 3 losses before the end of the year puts us at what, 15 wins? That's probably just on the outskirts of the top 4.
yeah.
If we get 2 losses, we're probably in the top 4 from here. So it'd be great if we could squeeze into the 4 somehow. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's, looking at it, like you say, Doe's probably Sydney, Fremantle, you start as an outsider. But other than that, you probably start favourite and expect to win most of those games. I mean, we've got, so Melbourne this week. Showdown's always 50-50. Let's not pencil that in before we get too far. But, you would expect on paper for us to beat Port. West Coast in Perth, maybe a bit of a challenge over there, but you probably win that. Gold Coast at home, you probably pencil that in. Sydney away, like we said, you probably start outsiders and fair enough. Collingwood at home, should get that done. Essendon away, let's not even talk about it, should get it done. Richmond at home, you probably get that done. And then, Perth and GWS to round out the season. It's a relatively soft draw somewhat. Half decent teams, and we catch them all at home or at the right time, other than Sydney and Fremantle. So, it's exciting if we keep playing the brand that we have been for the last couple of weeks. There's no reason why you can't sort of look towards top 4 or at least be very, very close to it, if not firmly in it.
I've had a couple of people today say that they think it's more so the personnel that we've got back, and I kind of feel like if you look at the way that we're playing and you watch the last couple of weeks, there is a definite intent to back ourselves in attack a bit more. And I feel like that difference of going from let's try and set up not to lose this game. And I think we all remember that Richmond game at the G, where we kind of had a horrible first half and a lackluster second half, and we got over the line. And compared to how we played against Geelong and the Bulldogs, and it looks like 2 completely different teams. It's a team that has belief and that intent to go forward with the ball, and you can just see the confidence grow when it comes off, and even when it necessarily doesn't, sometimes they'll go again, which is, that to me is the sign of a team that really can go further than we've expected. And credit to the coaching staff for making those changes, because I think I was pretty vocal and on if we're not going to stick with the same brand that has failed previously, we're not going anywhere, and there needs to be change in the way that we're playing, and it looks like that's happened. So I'm just hoping that we stick with that for longer than a few weeks and, bringing the back half of the season with a real bang.
I think with the way we were playing,
Yeah.
that boring defensive style chip ball, it was a lot to do with it had to do with the back of last year in the finals where we didn't hold possession, teams got us on the counter. we have to trial things in games to be stronger in those departments for the big games towards the end of the year. Now we're playing a more attacking, open game, trying to bank as many wins as we can. But I think the boring defensive chip style of play, that might help us because we've learned how to play that kind of that game plan when we may need to come finals time. And there will be probably some moments in the finals where we might have to slow it down to try and grind out a result because teams will just charge at us if it's a close game.
Yeah, fair call. It's pretty amazing to look at the comparison between how we're talking now and we're talking top four and stuff to maybe six to 8 weeks ago when we were talking, Nick's out and we've turned on the coach and we've turned on the fitness department. Not that that's necessarily changed. And the midfield coach and all of this. And you look at us now and we're going, yeah, top four and we're playing an attacking brand. It just goes to show that, a couple of weeks is a very long time in footy and things can turn around very quickly. So hopefully keep rolling.
This could swing back the other way. What I don't want to see is what happened last year where we regressed and went back into obviously some extenuating circumstances at the end of the year, but where we regressed and went back into our shells. I feel like that was a big negative, and I hope that's the number one learning from last year is don't go back into the shells. Actually embrace this a bit more chaotic style that seems to be getting results early on, and no doubt teams will go to work on it and try and figure it out. But there's something about a bit of chaos that always seems to generate something special. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. Nah, absolutely. Well, I reckon on that note, we'll head off now, boys. And thank you everyone for listening. Of course, we'll have our review of the D's game out early next week, whether that be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. We'll see how the timing lines up. At Proper Crows Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, absolutely everywhere. Give it a search, you'll find it. Jump in for the Mount Rushmore debate because that was that was intense. I fully intended to reply to everyone's comments last night, and then it got over 200 within a couple of hours. So that took me out of that. But jump in, give your opinion. We'd love to hear it, and we'll discuss it more next week. Josh, thank you for jumping on with us, mate.
Anytime, gents. Thank you. Go Socceroos. Go Isaac Rankin.
Absolutely. And Matt, thank you very much, mate.
No worries. Hopefully another win on Saturday in this very promising run of form.
Absolutely. And
Australia
go
or
Crows.
the Crows, mate. That could apply. That could apply to both, mate. Let's get over the line.
Absolutely. Get them both. 2 wins, USA and Melbourne. Won't see it coming. Love it. Great
Good
work.
gear, boys.
All right.
Thank
you,
gents.
boys. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Cheers.